Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see you all. There is a slight disadvantage of being the last speaker at a summer school, because what I'm about to say, you've probably already heard, possibly even more than once. But nevertheless, I shall give my talk, and I'd like you to think of it perhaps as a summary of the school, or that, and it brings all the different aspects of the school, all the different talks that we've had. Perhaps my talk brings them all together. My talk, The Mysteries of Existence. It is natural for any rational person to ask themselves at some point in their lives 4, not 3, 4 fundamental questions. Who am I? What is it all about? Why am I here? And where am I going? A person who asks these questions of themselves would appear to be rather confused and dissatisfied about their life. They will have realized that there is more to life than the material world, and so wish to seek fulfillment elsewhere. Where would they start? Possibly looking into religion. And I do know that many people do get fulfillment and satisfaction from their religion. Then there's philosophy. They also might look into science, or even theosophy, to answer their questions. So let us see if we can answer these questions in this talk. We start with the definition of the word existence. And according to the dictionary, existence is the state of having being or reality, in contrast with non-existence or non-being. Existence is often contrasted with essence, the essence of an entity being its essential features and qualities, which can be understood even if one does not know if the entity actually exists. Existence is a philosophical concept in metaphysics and ontology. And just in case you don't know the word ontology, it is the philosophical study of the nature of being. Do you think that makes all theosophists ontologists? I think it probably does. Synonyms for existence are reality, continuity, survival, actuality, being, breath, duration, entity, essence, individuality, and permanence. Now, these words came out of a dictionary, and there is one word that is missing from that list, and that word is consciousness. And we're going to talk about consciousness later in the talk. What does philosophy have to say about existence? In metaphysics, existence is that which applies neutrally to all and only those things real. Metaphysicians have much to say about the existence of non-existence of various things or categories of things, such as God, the soul, abstract forms, free will. They also have much to say about existence itself and the concept and meaning of the word. Metaphysicians disagree as to whether existence and being are the same thing. For example, do the many Greek, Roman, and Hindu gods actually exist? Although for many people they do seem to have being. The German Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant, identified it as the fallacy on which the ontological argument for the existence of God depends. If being and existence are the same thing, does existence mean the same thing in all its applications? Philosophers query whether there are degrees of existence. Plato has this to say: there exist such things as abstract objects, where an abstract object is an object that does not exist in space or time, and which is therefore entirely non-physical and non-mental. He also asserts that the physical realm is only a shadow or image of the true reality of the realm of forms. The forms are abstract, perfect, unchanging concepts or ideals that transcend time and space. Aristotle seems to have seen nothing more to existence than essence. And he said, there is not a space between an expression of what a thing is and that thing's existence. On the other hand, St. Thomas Aquinas famously distinguished a thing's essence from its existence, saying that existence is something in addition to essence. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a philosopher. I find it really very difficult. So I think we'll leave the philosophers to disagree amongst themselves, and we'll move on and see what the science has to say about existence. Einstein's theory of relativity, Bohr's quantum theory, and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle all point towards the concept of an absolute reality, as postulated by Madame Blavatsky. Einstein accepted the idea of an underlying field of being when he wrote the following: there is no place in this kind of physics for both the field and matter, for the field is the only reality. Now, writing in a work called The Spectrum of Consciousness, Ken Wilber indicates that consciousness within this unified field is non-dual. And this is what he said: recall the essential insight of the work of Heisenberg, Schrödinger, and Einstein, that the texture of reality is one in which the observer and the event, the subject and the object, knower and known, are not separable. In other words, they are one. This type of knowing, which is non-dual, intimate, and direct, does not submit to codification and analysis. We'll leave science and scientists there, I think, and move on to see what Theosophy has to say about existence. We start with some fundamental ideas. For millennia, human minds, when confronted by the mysteries of existence, have sought a spiritual basis for their understanding of the living universe and the relationship of human consciousness to it. The following fundamental ideas are essential as a foundation upon which we can base our understanding and meaning of existence. We start with: matter is not limited to the perception of the five senses. The second fundamental idea is that consciousness can exist independently of the physical body. The third fundamental idea is that there is no proof that consciousness ends at death. The fourth fundamental idea is that life is a continuing process. And the fifth, that all human beings have the potential to create for themselves and for humanity a future whose splendour has no limits. Now we'll look at the first four of those fundamental ideas in a little bit more detail. The first one. How do we know that matter is not limited to the perception of our senses? Is there a sixth sense? I would say yes, there is. For some people who are sensitive of things which most of us are unaware. Madame Blavatsky was a supreme example of such a person, for from a very young age, about the age of 4, I believe, she could converse with unseen creatures that her family referred to her as her spooks. Her phenomenal psychic abilities made her a suitable messenger for the masters who in the late 19th century wished to bring Eastern mysticism to the Western world. The second fundamental idea. What proof is there that consciousness can exist independently of the physical body? The most obvious one is that many people have had near-death experiences. On such occasions, they see their own bodies as apart from themselves. Their consciousness is elsewhere. And if it happens during an operation, they see the doctors and nurses frantically trying to revive them. When, usually with reluctance, they return to the physical body, they can accurately account in detail what happened. And there are other accounts of people having out-of-body experiences not necessarily associated with dying. Then comes the third statement, that there is no proof that consciousness ends at death. There are people who believe that human beings have one life only and insist that nothing exists after death. On what do they base this belief? For there seems to be no proof of its accuracy, and more proof of a future following physical death, as just explained. The fourth statement says life is a continuing process. This is based on the Eastern belief of reincarnation, suppressed by the Western religions for many years. Is there proof? The idea that after death the soul or consciousness passes on to another state until it is time for rebirth in the world of matter once more is a common belief of thousands of people. This doctrine is found in many Eastern sacred texts. There is evidence of reincarnation, and this especially among children under the age of 7. Dr. Ian Stevenson has written a book which is called 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, in which he tabulates such memories with names, places, and signed testimonies. Many great thinkers from past and present times have accepted the idea of reincarnation, and here's just a few of them: Plato, Tolstoy, Kant, Aldous Huxley, Robert Browning, and Jean Sibelius, and there are many others. And I'm going to show you 3 quotations. The first one is from Carl Jung. He said, "I can imagine that I might have lived in former centuries, that I had to be born again because I had not fulfilled the task given to me." And then we have the Spanish painter Salvador Dali, who had this to say: "I am not only a mystic, I am the reincarnation of one of the greatest of all Spanish mystics, St. John of the Cross. I can remember vividly experiencing divine union, undergoing the dark night of the soul. I can remember the monastery and many of St. John's fellow monks." And then thirdly, we have the Scottish novelist John Buchan. "I find myself in some scene which I cannot have visited before, and which is yet perfectly familiar. I know that it was the stage of action in which I once took part, and am about to take part again." And then the last statement, that all human beings have the potential to create for themselves and for humanity a future whose splendour has no limits, we're going to be talking about towards the end of this talk. Theosophy offers us a cosmic view of life. How does it do that? And we start with divine unity. The whole of existence, all of life, is an indivisible unity or wholeness, which forms the basis of the universal brotherhood, the first object of the society. This wholeness, which is in everything in the world, both seen and unseen, can be looked upon as a great pulsating energy field in which we live, move, and have our being. This energy we see in nature and feel within ourselves. Life has an evolutionary purpose. This means that all life is unfolding and gradually revealing its inherent wholeness. It is a return to the source, the perfection from which all life emanated. Then we have divine consciousness, which is in everything. We are told it is shared in minerals and plants, but begins to develop individuality in animals, finishing in the self-awareness and high level of consciousness of humanity. Moving on, we have reincarnation. For humans, evolution is spiritual growth through an endless chain of experiences within a cycle of births, deaths, and rebirths. Then we have the universe ruled by law. All life processes are governed by the impersonal law of cause and effect, which of course we call karma. The spiritual path. Each of us can tread the path of self-realization and the return to the source by feeling love and compassion for all that lives, by practicing self-awareness and meditation. Then we have divine will, divine wisdom, divine love. Theosophy, which means divine wisdom, recognizes that the energy of the one source holds all life together by divine will, sustains it by the magnificent power of divine love, and guides it on the evolutionary journey by divine intelligence. We humans serve the purpose of life as we realize this divine energy is the power source of our innermost being and live in harmony with it by expressing more and more brotherliness and compassion in our daily lives. The one reality. From the Secret Doctrine, we read the first proposition, and this is an abridged version of it. One absolute reality which antecedes all manifested conditioned being. This infinite and eternal cause is the rootless root of all that was, is, or ever shall be. Devoid of all attributes, it is beingness rather than being, and is beyond all thought or speculation. The teaching is that existence is one thing, not any collection of things linked together. Being absolute, there is nothing outside of it. It is all being. It is indivisible, else it would not be absolute. And now we have some words of wisdom from Madame Blavatsky, which are taken from her book on how to study theosophy. She says, "No matter what one may study in the Secret Doctrine, let the mind hold fast as the basis of its ideation to the following. Firstly, the fundamental unity of all existence. Fundamentally, there is one being. This fundamental one existence or absolute being must be the reality in every form there is. The atom, the man, the God are each separately, as well as all collectively, absolute being in their last analysis. That is their real individuality. It is this idea which must be held always in the background of the mind." The second idea to hold fast to, according to Madame Blavatsky, is that there is no dead matter. Each atom is alive. It cannot be otherwise, since every atom is itself fundamentally absolute being. Thirdly, is the basic idea to be held that man is the microcosm. As he is, so then all the hierarchies of the heavens exist within him. But in truth, Blavatsky says, there is neither macrocosm nor microcosm, but one existence. Great and small are such only as viewed by a limited consciousness. The fourth and last basic idea to be held is expressed in the great Hermetic axiom, which really sums up and synthesizes all the others, and I'm sure you know this very well. As is the inner, so is the outer. As is the great, so is the small. As it is above, so it is below. There is but one life and law, and he that worketh it is one. Nothing is inner, nothing is outer. Nothing is great, nothing is small. Nothing is high, nothing is low in the divine economy. HBB continues, therefore, there is no such thing as, and I do really like this sentence, therefore, Blavatsky says, there is no such thing as spaces of ether or akasha, or call it what you like, in which angels and elementals disport themselves like trout in water. The true idea shows every atom of substance, no matter on what plane, to be itself a life. And then finally, Blavatsky has this to say: the idea of absolute being must form the basis of every conception that arises from the study of the secret doctrine. And she gives us this advice: the moment one lets go, and it is most easy to do so when engaged in any of the many intricate aspects of esoteric philosophy. I'll say it again: the moment one lets go, the idea of separation supervenes and the study loses its value. Cosmic force. We now come to the most, to my mind, mysterious mystery of existence according to the ancient teachings, of which students of the secret doctrine will be familiar. What am I referring to? Hands up. Sort of. Fohat. Yes, well done. Fohat. The derivation of the word is uncertain. It is thought to be either a Tibetan or possibly a Mongolian word. It has no English translation, but many definitions due to its numerous forms. Here's a question: could we think of Fohat as another name for existence? Putting it as simply as we can, Fohat is cosmic energy. And in the secret doctrine we read, Fohat is a breath of cosmogenesis and the mysterious electrical power, the propelling vital force of the universe, which makes all things possible. Fohat is the bridge by which the ideas existing in the divine thought are impressed on cosmic substance as the laws of nature. It is through Fohat that the ideas of the universal mind are impressed upon matter, and that does include intelligence. It is the animating principle electrifying every atom into life. Some other forms of Fohat: electricity, magnetism, sound, light, heat, solar energy. Fohat is cosmic vitality, and its energizing force is a directed and intelligent power imbued with purpose. Fohat, therefore, is in everything, in every atom that makes up our world, and that does include humanity. In the manifested universe, it is the link between subject and object, spirit and matter. And interestingly, or interesting to me anyhow, is that the swastika is the symbol for Fohat. Fohat indeed is a mighty force, the energy field in which we live, move, and have our being, in both the spiritual and the material world. Could we also call it existence? Possibly. This is just my personal opinion. I like to think of Fohat as the impulse, the generator, the spark that brought life into existence, rather than existence itself. We are told, however, that there cannot be existence without Fohat, and that there cannot be Fohat without existence. Fohat is therefore a collective entity. Moving on to existence and consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is a state of awareness, the knowing of thoughts, feelings, intentions, and sensations within us. It is our being, that person considered to be me, myself. Being conscious of our personality, of our lifestyle, of our desires, and the degree of satisfaction in our life is what makes us ask those fundamental questions and proceed to seek the answers. As Theosophists, we acclaim the oneness of all life. That which exists in me is the same as that which exists in every being. There is only one existence, often referred to as absoluteness or isness or beingness. Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual philosophy, has 3 Sanskrit words to describe the experience of the nature of self. And these are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat is defined as existence, Chit as consciousness, and Ananda as bliss. If we consider that consciousness alone exists, we could then say that consciousness and existence are one and the same, and Ananda, which is often referred to as unlimited bliss, is achieved through knowing that we are the infinite being that never dies. We will know this once we realize that we are the witness of the ego and not the ego itself. This is the lower ego. Once we are freed from the limitations of body and mind, and when we are beyond the realm of cause and effects. Our reality, our existence is beingness itself, the all in self and the self in all, which is oneness, unity, eternity. The experience of oneness, which may be a brief life-changing instant or sustained and controlled expansion of consciousness into other realms, is known differently. Some call it enlightenment or self-realization. Others nirvana, liberation, or Christ consciousness. All are the same experience, the fusion of the personal self into a world of bliss where the divine reality is experienced. And to my mind, this is beautifully described in Sir Edward Arnold's Light of Asia. The dew is on the lotus. Rise, great sun, and lift my leaf and mix me with the wave. Om Mane Padme Hum. The sunrise comes, the dewdrop slips into the shining sea. Still thinking about consciousness, I would like to refer what I consider, and I know some other people do as well, a wonderful work called Yoga Fascista, the Supreme Yoga. I will quote from the version by Swami Venkatasnanda. And this is set out, as many ancient writings, as a dialogue, and in this case it's between the sage Fascista and his pupil Rama. This is what it says. The universe is in fact the eternal, effulgent, infinite consciousness which generates within itself the knowable with an idea of concerning form and with an inquiry concerning itself. It says there are 14 planes of consciousness. These are the manifestations of the creative thought of consciousness. It also says this: cosmic consciousness alone exists now and ever. Consciousness is not knowable when it wishes to become knowable. It is known as the universe. Even as heat is to fire, liquidity is to water, coolness is to ice, sweetness is to honey, the universe is to consciousness. The world exists because consciousness is, and the world is the body of consciousness. And the last quote: there can be no mind without consciousness, but mind is not consciousness, for consciousness is self-awareness. Self-awareness is knowing our true self. So moving on, we're going to think about the purpose and the plan of our life. When we have reached the realization of who we are, how do we apply this knowledge to our lives? How do we see the purpose of our life, and how then do we plan to live the best life we can? And one way we can do this is by striving for perfection. We have seen that the innate perfection of everything exists in the mind of God, and the life force, the divine will, is the drive to express that perfection as fully as possible. Nature, when left to itself and not disturbed by the activities of mind, produces perfection. Everything is striving to live in harmony with the song of life, in which the perfection of each individual note is necessary for the perfection of the whole. Life is like a great river, moving restlessly and purposefully, and the individual units of life are the eddies and the whirlpools, always one with the river, but having an illusionary life of its own. Plants and animals' lives are instinctive, whereas humans are highly developed, self-conscious beings with a sense of self-identity and I-ness, responsible for their own decisions. The purpose of existence for us can be seen as spiritual, intellectual, cultural, and physical growth towards perfection. Just as the power to grow is inherent in every seed, so in the highest aspect of our consciousness, the immortal spark of the divine fire and the powers which lead us to perfection are present from the beginning. Experience brings out these powers. All experience is valuable. Nothing is wasted, even if it appears so, for silently the seed is developing. The life force impels us on to our destiny, which is perfection. The purpose of life, of our existence, is to develop our own spirituality with an aim towards perfection. This does not happen automatically, for we have to plan how we do this and work hard to achieve our goal. The 3 pillars of theosophy, study, meditation, and service, to me seem to be one of the best ways we can achieve the real purpose of existence, the reason why we are here. At the start of the talk, I mentioned 5 ideas on which we could base our understanding of existence. And I talked about the first 4, but I've left the last one, the 5th one, to the end. If you remember, this is what it said: that all human beings have the potential to create for themselves and for humanity a future whose splendour has no limits. I think that's a fantastic sentence. Exciting. But how could we turn potentiality into reality? And my thinking is that it's only by first discovering who we are, understanding the meaning of life, and then knowing where we are going in this life, that we can create a future of splendour for ourselves. Once we are sure of ourselves and recognise that splendour within ourselves, that glorious light of divinity which is so often shrouded by the materialism of the world in which we live, and by our desires, then we can make a difference to the future of the world. Each individual is not only responsible for their own future, but for the future of the world, which supports us and all life. Okay, so we're getting to the end. Let us summarise this talk by answering the 4 fundamental questions I asked at the start of the talk. Who am I? What is it all about? Why am I here? And where am I going? The answer starts with you. You are. But we could also think of it as we. We are, because we are all one. But if you want to sort of make it a more personal thing, you can say, I am. But we will use the word you, as that's what it is written. Who am I? You are more than the physical body, the emotions or mind. Your essential self is not the senses, the thoughts, or the actions. The essential self is the awareness that remains. What is it all about? You are a focus of the one reality. Your true self is immortal, but expresses itself through a personality which is subject to death and change. Spiritual growth takes place as the personality of thought and feeling is purified and harmonized by the inflow from the spiritual self. Third question, why am I here? You are here in order to discover that in your true nature, you are one with the great stream of divine energy and have the power within yourself to focus and express here and now the love and wisdom which sustains the universe. The last question. Where am I going? You are going in a direction you have chosen, either ever drifting through life at the mercy of your own passing whims and moods, or taking responsibility for the whole of yourself, your character, your actions, your future. You are either choosing at every moment either to waste your opportunities or to move consciously towards the goal of self-realization, which means the perfect expression of your divine nature through your personality. My talk ends there, but I'm going to leave you with a few words which I would like you to contemplate on. The words will be on the screen, but maybe you could just sit quietly with your eyes closed and just absorb the meaning of the sentences I'm about to read to you. Our aspirations are to lighten the darkness within. So let light fill your whole being. Let light fill your heart with joy, your mind with peace, and your soul with love.